Will be whether they get to the penultimate classified climb, still at the front of the race today. Breakaway then, 6 riders strong. They've had 3 minutes. We've had an intermediate sprint as well. That was taken by João Matias. He took 6 bonus seconds and now sits at 4 seconds from the overall lead of Alexander Kristoff. And we still have our 6 riders in the break as we join live coverage. Bom dia, Matt Stevens.
Hello, good to be back again. Looking forward to this one. Yesterday we had a thrilling finish, didn't we? It really was an exciting one. So much to talk about in that bunch kick, and as you said quite rightly, Alexander Kristoff certainly not diminished by his age. In fact, he seems to get better and better, doesn't he? But yeah, completely different proposition today.
58.8 kilometres remain, and we're looking at Alexander Kristoff. Gap still at 2 minutes and 17 seconds. That's a fairly decent gap, isn't it? Now we've 2 fairly short climbs to come before we come to our penultimate classified climb. That's Picota, an habitual climb on this approach to Alto de Folla. Matt, is the breakaway going to get there to see any change in the King of the Mountains classification?
It's a sizable gap, isn't it, that they've got at the moment. It's pretty reasonable. I thought, and the bit of terrain they've been over, or they're just going to be dropping off, is actually pretty hard. So they haven't really lost too much of the lead over the last 20 or 30 Ks on this plateau. We do lose a fair bit of elevation in a minute. Then we head towards, well, there's a series of slopes. There's 2 smaller climbs before we get to the climb of the Picota, which is 6.4 Ks at 6.4%. That's the penultimate categorised climb to the line. I think it might be touch and go. It just depends on who wants to ride hard at the front. Right now it's still Uno X riding because they have the yellow jersey, but they've clearly got hopes for the overall with Tobias Johannesson as well, who can finish very, very well. So I think they're riding with dual purpose today.
Don't forget about Anton Charmik either. He knows how to ride a GC and was good in Valencia the other week. In the meantime, this man rides all right. Here's Quinten Hermans.
Quinten, first, tell us how are you with this new jersey, new team? How do you feel?
Pretty good, yeah. It's nice to be in a newer environment, and yeah, it's super nice, especially now today with the good weather to be here.
We're still early in the season. How is your shape? Is it in a state where you could contend for a victory today?
I don't think yet, but we're here with Nicola Conci, and it was a goal for him to be here at his best, so we'll help him as good as possible.
And for you, what is the program this year at the beginning of the season?
Sorry?
What is the program? What is your aim?
Okay, yeah, so Algarve is a kind of a preparation race. Okay, I'm here to do the best I can and to do some race rhythm with a new team. It's all a little bit new for me. They work quite differently. And after this I will go on altitude camp to prepare Milano-San Remo and go on to the Ardennes Classics.
Without saying any secret, what is so different about this team and Intermarché?
Every team is different in all ways, and it was just with like regular stuff, like in like how to eat the carbs in the race, how to eat the pre-carbs, the recovery strategy after the race. So it's all just like these little things how you get used to, but it's not something you want to get used to in Milan-San Remo. It's good to be here to get used to it.
That was very interesting, wasn't it, from Quinten Hermans?
Yeah, it's quite insightful, though he didn't give away any detail. What it showed is the fact that we know that there's cultural differences between the teams, there's managerial differences, there's strategic differences in relation to what sponsors actually want out of the team. But fundamentally, you'd imagine at this day and age, the way the sport is, our understanding of nutrition, physiology, tactics, you'd think they'd be all converging toward the same place, but still, amongst the best teams in the world, things are done quite differently, and that's really quite interesting. I spent a little bit of time with the Alpecin de Koning team, and you know, they have a particular way about them, which is really interesting. It's good, it's interesting, but it's interesting that Hermans was saying, it's the analogy I would use, never try something new the day before a big event as an amateur rider, and he just wants to make sure that he beds himself in ahead of his big first target, the Milano-San Remo, because he is doing things quite a little bit differently by the sounds of things, so that's quite intriguing. You'd have thought there'd be a lot of similarities between teams here at the very vanguard, the very cutting edge of the sport, but yeah, very interesting indeed. Also, a nod towards Conchi as well for the overall for those guys as well. We know he's a very capable puncher.
Nicola Conci, 26 years of age, yet to win a pro bike race, but he ended last season very well with a podium at the Veneto Classic. Began as a rider, 5 years ago, I think now, with Trek Segafredo. He's in his second season now with Alpecin Koenig, so he's getting used to that new way of working, and it worked for him last year, not just that podium at the Veneto Classic. He also took his first GC podium last year. That was at the Arctic race. He was third there, so maybe that was the first step on the road to the challenge here. We'll find out. Television away at a commercial break. Thanks for sticking with us on our digital platforms. Your reward is being able to see every single minute of every single race we show without interruption. Down to 2 minutes and 6 seconds now, this gap. 55 kilometres to go, and we're about to pop down on what is quite a short descent. 5-8 kilometres or so. Relative flat, a couple of very short peaks and troughs before we get to the climb, the second category climb to Picota. And after that, Alto da Foia, but don't expect any big high mountain stuff. I think we mentioned this yesterday, or at least we gave a pretty brief nod to it, Matt. This stage usually looks like the end of a sprint stage when you're coming up the final hill.
Yeah, the previous time. I've actually never commentated on this race before. I've always been watching it as a fan, sat at home. But the finish on this particular climb, it's a climb that's regularly used. There is a selection, but it's quite a big group, sometimes 40, 45 riders, sometimes as little as 30, but it is a big group because it's a fast climb as well. And we will get a little bit of a headwind on the climb, like tailwind on the climb as well, but there's not too much wind today at all. But over the last few years, it's not a super selective climb because it's so fast. And the faster they ride up a climb, the more benefit there is from sitting in the wheels. That's why it doesn't split up as much. So the gradients are not too severe at all. 7.7 Ks at 6.1%, which for me swings into the favour. The climbers are going to be fine, but also it opens it up to the punchers and also perhaps some of the TT specialists. Stefan Kung picking a name. Look how well he's ridden over the last couple of years. Filippo Ganna, who shouldn't lose too much time today. So I do think we'll see a larger group come to the end. But you never know, we might see a little group clip off as well. But I'm thinking we'll see a selection, but pretty sizable group coming towards the line. And perhaps somebody stealing a march a la Evenepoel over the last couple of years.
Here's the current king of the mountains. It's Antonio Ferreira, fighting for the Kelly team. That's not our Kelly, he'll be back soon, by the way.
King Kelly. There's only one Kelly, isn't there? Well, there's clearly two, but there's only one King Kelly, isn't there?
He'll be watching, I can tell you that.
Oh, he's a man of research, isn't he? You can learn a lot from Sean. His application, not towards racing back in the day, but his application towards doing this job, something to admire, isn't it? It really is.
It is exceptional. He's a pleasure to work with, and you'll all be able to hear him from Paris-Nice onwards, as usual. Meantime, you're looking at the back of Matthew Gibson here. He's a British rider, 26 years of age, up there with the human-powered health team coming from the United States. Winding our way through the hills of southwest Portugal. Started today in Sagres. Beautiful, beautiful little place right on the southwest tip of the Iberian Peninsula. It can get wild and windy down there, but can be beautiful as well. Sort of that tip there of Portugal, and very famous for its beverages as well. A beverage named after the town. Like a beer or two, look out for it. And it's from there you can see out to the Portuguese islands. Of course, you can't see them from there. You were looking out to the Atlantic, to the Americas, to Madeira, Azores, if you look even further away. Today we looked inland and went to Alto da Foia. Usual finish climb early on in the race. But the winner, Matt, the winner. The last couple of years the winner hasn't been the GC winner, but on many an occasion it has. I'm just taking the last 5 years as a sample size, if you will. In 2018, Kwiatkowski won the stage and took the GC. In 2019, Pogacar won the stage and ended up the GC winner, the race where we discovered him, really, at this particular level. The year later, it was the same with Evenepoel. Took the stage and ended up winning the GC. Now, last year, Hayter, 2 years ago, Hayter won the stage, just missed out on the GC on the last day. And David Gaudu won the stage last year, but of course it will be Remco Evenepoel who would again win the GC. So the last 2 years may be an anomaly, or are things changing? We'll have to watch. But a case, I mean, apart from Ethan Hayter there, which is sensational to hold on for victory, they were all sort of GC men winning, weren't they?
Yeah, it's clearly a key stage, but we had a funny incident, I think it was last year, when Higuita crashed on the final corner as well, didn't we? So coming into that final corner, there was a little bit of chaos. There was a split. I think Gaudu had already gone clear, actually. I think he'd legged it a little bit earlier, to coin a phrase, but I think he'd already gone clear. But like you say, it's a decisive stage, but not super decisive. I mean, the top 30 was spread over a couple of minutes. We only had about 20 coming into the final, so it's a little bit more selective than previous years last year. But quite a few of the riders who were up there last year aren't here this year. The best placed Dani Martinez of Ineos, who was 5th last year.
Another man's here is Grand Tour winner, Jai Hindley.
Jay, well, how are you for your comeback in Europe? A different weather? How do you feel?
Yeah, not too bad. It's nice to be here in Portugal and sunny weather today, so that's nice.
And how is the shape at the moment? Is it in state to try something?
Yeah, I think it's going in the right direction. I mean, it's not the biggest goal of the season for me here in Portugal, but I think the shape's good, and we've also got a good team here with Jordi for the sprints, who was second yesterday, so that's a great ride by him. And with Sergio as well for the opportunity today, I think could be a good stage for him, and try capitalise on that.
What's the plan for you at this beginning of the season? How to build up the shape for your goals? What's the timing, if I can say? Yeah,
I think it's I really want to try to target the Tour, and that's not till July. So for me, the pre-season, the early season races are not so important, and I'll really just try gradually build up the form for July there, and try hit that real peak in July, basically.
Just one last word about today. We know the start of today is kind of a uphill sprint. It will be the same today, you think?
I think so, yeah. There's quite a lot of, good time trialists who could still get up this climb today and then really go for the GC, I think. So I can see the tempo on the last climb being super fast, but maybe not so easy to get away with an attack. And then, I think most likely a small bunch comes to the finish similar to last year, but you never know. Maybe it plays out different, but that's how I see it going.
Okay, man.
Cool, guys.
The history maker, Jai Hindley, the first Australian to win the Giro d'Italia, just 18 months after having been within the final stage time trial of the same feat. From the Giro to the Tour this year, Matt, for him.
Yeah, he's why not? They've got big ambitions, and ambition number one was ticked off, taking that first Grand Tour for the team, and what a ride it was. Because I think we have to be really, really honest about that runner-up spot, the first back in 2020 when Tao Geoghegan Hart actually took it. A few people said, well, was it really? The field was decimated because of COVID, awful crashes, and but the way that. But he backed up that runners-up spot, and obviously there was a stage win in there as well. He led the race until the very last day, as you said, but really came, really made good on that potential that he showed. But to win a Grand Tour in the style that he did, taking out Carapaz on the final big mountain stage, you know what? It was proper thrilling stuff. I mean, as a spectator, it wasn't just measured; it was just executed to perfection, and clearly. But he's a rider that. It's quite stealth. I mean, he doesn't seem to do much for the rest of the year, but he can focus and get himself right for one event. So I think, that the team are going to put everything behind him. The team over the last couple of years, Rolf Aldag has completely changed the way the team have decided to race and focus. They're far more aggressive. They're winning across the board, and to actually win that first Grand Tour with that new look feel to the team is a big achievement. So they clearly believe in him. He's going to have great backup as well. So I can see Jai Hindley getting a podium in the Tour de France. I really can, and I hope that they ride disruptively like they did in the Giro d'Italia last year too. So an exciting year ahead. But yeah, he looks pretty chilled, doesn't he? I think he'll just take his chances, see how he goes, look after Higuita today.
We're into the final 50 kilometres now and heading downhill. 47 kilometres remain, and 1 minute 47 is the current gap. Still UNOX who are riding, and at the back of the little line of yellow and orange jerseys here is the rather more yellow jersey of the leader, Alexander Kristoff. That was a superb win from yesterday, Matt. A good feeling, I imagine, to get the first one after signing, and you always must be, however good you are, a little nervous to think, can I still do it? Am I still going to be winning? And certainly with riders like Alexander Kristoff, who've had those sort of periods where he's winning a lot, the purple patches, and then there are longish periods where he doesn't win an awful lot. It must have been really good for Kristoff to be up and running. And again, people might be asking a few more questions. He's 35 now. Definitively answered straight away. He was in good company, wasn't he, yesterday?
Yeah, he was in very, very good company. It beat some very, very fast sprinters. The team is gelling really well. The team have got a lot of belief in him. He's 35, as you say, Rob, well into the autumn of his career, but with every race that he rides, gains more and more experience, and that's what he has in spades. And also, he's just got a ridiculous engine. The harder the finish, the better for Alexander Kristoff. When you look at some of the wins he's had in Bunch Kings, they're either into a headwind or up a bit of a drag. He comes by very late. He finds those gaps. So he's got the instinct of a pure sprinter, but the endurance of a classic specialist as well. So he's a really intriguing proposition, and to be a part of this Norwegian project, it's a 3-year deal as well, so it's going to take him through to 37, 38 years of age. And I think as well as having his own targets, he'll be this talismanic figure. He'll be a road captain, I think, as well, to nurture this new wave of Norwegian and Scandinavian talent. It's not a fully Norwegian team. We obviously have riders from Denmark in there as well, Sweden, but no, he's an important figure in Norwegian cycling, and that demonstration yesterday is going to fill him with a lot of confidence. It really, really is. So form fades. Class never fades. When you look at the results he's had over the years, it's just that belief. But quite right, it's a bit of a commentator's cliche. Getting that win early is important, but it is. It really, really is massively important. And it wouldn't surprise me if he possibly picked off another one with our next sprint opportunity, which is tomorrow.
Time trial has been moved until the final day in the last couple of years. Time trial around Lagoa. A number of editions it seemed to split. You have a sprint day, climbing day, time trial in the middle. There's a sandwich filling, if you like. And then we had sprint day and another climbing day. They shake it up every few years, don't they? And in the last couple of years we've had time trial on the final day. And Jai Hindley, going back to his interview, they mentioned time trialists being able to last the course, and this is something that you gave a nod to yesterday with Filippo Ganna. There's also the likes of Stefan Kung, who's been very close in the past to winning this race overall.
Yeah, Stefan Kung is a really interesting one, and if you look at his results last year in particular, he just got better and better at climbing. So
Tour de Suisse, I think I remember.
Yeah. Exactly. So we know how good he is at time trialling, but then there's that bronze medal at the World Road Race in Yorkshire as well. So he's a classics rider. I think Stefan Kung is moulding himself into, clearly he's going to be a classics rider, always a TT specialist, but week-long stage races, he seems to be becoming something that he's very, very good at, because his climbing is improving year on year. And you see this quite often happening to riders who are out-and-out TT specialists, and then they work on their engine. Probably the best example over the last decade is a very own Bradley Wiggins. It's similar physiology and similar look on a bike as well. So it just depends on whether Stefan Kung is targeting this. The rest of their team, you've got Valentin Madouas, who will like this sort of course as well, although not a big TT rider. But I do think even Stefan Bissego, the European champion as well, and Filippo Ganna, there are 3 very good time trialists here that could do something. We shall see, but it's an interesting one. I think we'll soon find out once they start to set the tempo on the climb, because there'll be a few people going out the back very, very quickly, and we'll soon get an idea who wants to stay in there and go for the overall.
perhaps options for World Tour Portuguese success this year, perhaps more than ever, because Rui Costa's there wearing number 51. Just in front of him with 111 on his back is the current Portuguese national champion, and that's João Almeida. We've had Portuguese winners in the past. Amaro Antunes, I remember winning one of the mountain stages up here a few years back. That's before he went to the World Tour and rather since retired from the sport. But you've got two of the top names in Portuguese cycling there who've gone abroad and ridden for world teams. Rui Costa, we know, is in form. Be right up his street, a little mountain sprint today, wouldn't it, up there? João Almeida, you talk time trialists. He's an excellent climber who I am told has worked a heck of a lot on his time trial since joining UAE Emirates, and we know that's something that works for several riders. Look at what happened with Jay Vine, for example, picking up that national championship as soon as he joined. It's something they go to work on straight away in that team. You would not be surprised if Almeida, with the final time trial coming at the end of the week, could be a man to try and do something in the overall.
I think so. Riding on home soil, you'd imagine he's going to be motivated for this race. He's already had a top 10 early in the year in Mallorca in the second race there. And all eyes will be on him. He's, as you said, he's the Portuguese national champion too. And this sort of sprint, if it comes down to a sprint, of course, we do think it might. A smaller group will suit him down to the ground, because as well as being and improving on his TT ability, he's very explosive as well. He can sprint well from a small group, so I think this climb will suit him down to the ground. But I'm interested to see Rui Costa as well. Again, another rider. What is he now? 36, and already had one of the best years of his whole career. So I think we could see a proper Portuguese head-to-head right at the very sharp end as we come in towards the line today. I really do.
Lots of old Portuguese fans normally around this part. They really know their cycling. You see the old retirees out there on the side of the road. You always see them at this race. And before you and I came to where I was watching pictures of the finish line, and it was an odd word for young local riders, obviously amateurs, but good riders. They knew who they were, the people on the side of the road. They were giving them shouts. They know their cycling in these parts. It'd be brilliant to see some Portuguese success. One minute 46, still bit by bit, UNOX pull back that gap. It's a strong group of 6 riders that's still all together, despite the fact that they've fought hard for King of the Mountains points for sprints as well. And they're out there now trying to get to the foot of the next categorised climb. Looking at Valentin Madouas on your screen. Matt gave him a brief mention just a moment ago, wearing number 35 at this race. He's in the darker navy blue jersey of Groupama FDSG this year. A good end to the season last year. Did very well in Luxembourg.
He's got a good kick in him as well, Madouas, hasn't he? Do you remember? I think it's one of the first races came to the fore. Me and you were on the ground at Amstel Gold when it was won by Mathieu van der Poel. He figured quite highly in that race as well. But no, very versatile rider.
Let's hear then from Valentin Madouas, since we've seen him a minute ago. He spoke to us at the start of the day.
Well,
is the shape as good as Murcia or better? Well, I hope it's better. The finish is harder than Murcia. It needs to be strong, and I think it'll be a big test for the beginning of the season. Harder finish is better compared to Murcia for you then? Yeah, the finish is hard, and we remember that David Gaudu won here last year.
On se souvient de David Gaudu qui a gagné l'année dernière, donc notre
We're going to try and do it again,
après on sait que ça va être compliqué,
but we know it'll be hard.
We'll
give our best. I think we've got a nice stage coming up.
And
you have GC ambitions with you or Stefan Küng, considering that long TT maybe for him?
Non, c'est vrai, on a des ambitions.
Yeah, it's true. We have ambitions with Stefan to limit the time loss on the 2 summit finishes,
les deux arrivées au sommet, et moi,
and for me to gain time on the TT specialists. So we'll both go for it.
L'objectif, c'est
we want to focus on stage wins if we can, because the TT is the last stage. So that allows us to focus on stages first, and if I have time advantage on TT specialists, maybe even I could fight for the GC. We'll see. That was a really refreshing interview for me, Matt, because instead of just, playing a forward defensive cricket shot, if you like, batting it straight back to the bowler, he cover drove it. He sent it straight to the boundary. No, I won it. It was almost as if saying, hang on a minute, don't stop talking Stefan Küng up. I could win this thing.
Yeah, it's he spoke with a lot of confidence. He's had a fourth place already this year. Clearly is in good form, and we want to win stages. Not are we going to just build up and see how it goes, which is the defensive stance, isn't it? You know, even off the pads. But no, he played an honest stroke there, and but I think looking at these stages, maybe the day after tomorrow might suit him a little bit more, a little bit of a harder climb. But Madouad clearly fancies his chances, and it's quite refreshing to see somebody backing themselves in an interview like that. So best of luck to him today.
Marvellous. 40 kilometres remain, and UNOX still control at the front. On this descent and then into the flat, they've started to take back more time. As I finish the phrase, the time dips below a minute and a half. And tell you that we've still got 6 strong riders out in front. They are Matthew Gibson from Great Britain, representing the American Humid-Powered Health team. There's Portuguese rider Rafael Lourenço, riding for AP Hotels Tavira. Thomas Conte comes from Argentina, but he rides for a Portuguese team. That's the team from Lule, Aviludo. Lule is a town, by the way, in Algarve itself, as is Tavira, the other team, so really local teams. We've got Efapel, which is a big, strong Portuguese team from down the years. Gaspar Gonçalves is in the breakaway representing them. João Matias, he's taken bonus seconds. He's in the green jersey, racing for Taver Ovos Matinados Mortágua. And there's also the King of the Mountains in the sort of navy jersey there. He's weighing 224, and that's Antonio Ferreira. He leads by a single point in the King of the Mountains classifications, with a second cat and a first category climb still to come today. So it could all change this, depending on who gets there, depending on if the peloton bring them back. There's a lot to take in, not just in terms of stage win and GC, but today you'll be looking too in the King of the Mountains classification. We'll also be looking at the points classification, because somebody who could be right up there at the end today, Thomas Pidcock, was relegated yesterday for his position in the sprint. He also had a reduction of, I think, 25% of his points in the points classification. Was it 25% or was it 25 points? He had a reduction of points in the points classification.
He'll be on a minus. That does happen. If he not scored because he'll be on a minus basically. So I don't think Tom Pidcock will now figure. But yeah, it's the thing. Okay, he's taken it on the chin, that relegation. But I loved it. He gave a nice interview after the finish about it. He was quite pragmatic. Said, yeah, I was carrying a lot of speed. Somebody closed the door a little bit. I pushed them out of the way, something I'd maybe do in training. So maybe I haven't got my head quite right. I apologise, I was wrong to do it. But I want to. Every time I get on a bike, I want to race. And that's what. And we didn't even think about Tom Pidcock yesterday, did we, for the bunch kick? But again, shows his ridiculous versatility and also his hunger to race the bike. Whenever he jumps on the bike, he wants to be in a bike race, and he is one of the most refreshing riders in this new generation that we have, and I think has fundamentally changed the way that Ineos race, because they're allowing him to express himself. Completely did it on his own, just decided. We didn't even see him in the mix, and there he was. The way he can navigate and filter his way through the peloton is wonderful. But I'm expecting him to be up there today, because he'll be ruining yesterday.
Yesterday's success was Norwegian. Here's another one. World TT champion Tobias Foss.
Tobias, tell us first, how are you? Start of the season, how are the feelings?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's been a long winter and a lot of training hours, so I'm looking forward to start racing now. And yesterday was a good first stage of the season, so I'm looking forward to today as well.
Yeah, we've seen it. Quite happy at the finish yesterday, congratulating your compatriots from UNOX.
Yeah, no, he's a nice guy. We did the worst together, and also Tiller and especially Skorset, they're like guys I grew up with, so I know them really well. They're good mates of mine, so it's also nice as a Norwegian to see that. Luckily, we didn't have a proper sprinter here, so we didn't care too much. But then it's nice to see that they did really well.
What's your goal this week?
My goal is to be up there and fight for the GC winner. I think the climb here suits me really well, and with a good time trial in the end, it's a proper chance for me to take the GC. So that's the main goal. And then if I feel good today, I want to try
win the sprint again, and and then we see just go day by day.
That will be compulsory a sprint. I mean, on this finish, with the pace of the climb, with the wind, it has to be a sprint. It's impossible someone managed to anticipate.
Yeah, I also heard and seen like the last previous editions as well that it's mainly like either a really reduced group or like a group of 20-25 guys. So I think it's inevitable to avoid any kind of sprint there. But we have to see. It's quite some climbing first, but I think like the last climb is quite tricky with a bit of headwind in the end, and not too steep to make a super big difference. So I think it's going to be exciting.
Cheers.
The Foss fairy tale then could be going into another season. Norwegian journalist says he's the nicest guy in Norwegian cycling. He certainly comes across well. He is yet to win any prize outside of Nationals or the Worlds. Of course, the Worlds was a very special one, wasn't it? That's why I think it surprised a lot of people. Always talked up. But as a professional, after winning the Tour de l'Avenir, that's the under-23 Tour de France for any of you new to watching the cycling on the telly, he'd never really taken anything at pro level, despite a lot being expected of him. He had good placings, top 10 in the Giro. I know he impressed, we were talking about him earlier, impressed our good mate Sean Kelly. Sean always looked at him and said, no, this is a guy to watch. He can time trial, he can climb. And then we were all a little bit disappointed at last year's Giro with him, I think. The Worlds was special. He is now the World Time Trial Champion. It's good to hear him sounding confident because he thinks that he can be a GC rider. Of course, if you win the Tour de l'Avenir, there's a lot of pressure on you. But he's still 24, 25 actually. He's just gone 25. He is a rider who has a lot to offer in stage racing, I think, Matt.
I totally agree. And that performance in the Giro that you mentioned, it was back in 2021 where he was 9th overall. You don't finish 9th in the top 10 in the Giro unless you can climb. You know, it's but as you say, he showed this potential, flatlined ever so slightly within the grand scheme of things, because of the potential that he'd shown. And when you look at the winners of the Tour de l'Avenir, we don't need to say why there was that level of expectancy. But that win last year at the World Championships was a slight surprise, but he absolutely nailed it. He did his research. It's a particularly hard time trial because of the amount of corners, the amount of climbs, the breaks in rhythm, and to me that shows he is the type of rider that will be suited to the week-long stage races. He's therefore quite explosive and get up to speed pretty quickly. And interestingly, we had Foss who won last year, Stefan Kung who was second silver medalist, he's here. We've got Stefan Bissiger 5th, he's here, and Filippo Ganna who was 7th. So wouldn't say it's really a revenge match, but we've got some of the finest time trialists in the world here for Sunday. But the fact he said I'm going to go for it is quite revealing.
Gaspar Gonçalves is off in hunt of prizes on his own. The breakaway is starting to break up. We wonder whether they get to that next climb. I'm starting to think that it's a pretty impossible mission now, Matt Stevens. A couple of these little lumps and bumps to come, and then we descend into the start of a second category climb to Picota. You imagine that if the peloton continue the pace behind, look at them all fighting for little bits of road. We've seen the road start to narrow going through on the loop, haven't we? We're on a wider road now. You can see that Alpecin de Koenig have come up. Uno X are there as well. Tudor, Groupama, Bora and DSM. Not much room there. 55 seconds now. This is the peloton. Everybody's still here for the minute, but the breakaway's breaking up in front. Just get the feeling, Matt Stevens, that we're now going into a different phase of today's race.
Yeah, you've got the interest in the mountains points and the interest of trying to stay away as long as they can. The lead's under a minute now, 35.5 k's to go. We've still got the rest of this climb, and then a drop down, and then the ascent of the penultimate climb of the day, the second category Picota. That doesn't top out till 15.1 k's to go, and with the gap the way it is at the moment, it's going to be narrow. I think they're going to really pick up the pace, the peloton, on this penultimate climb. So with a lead at only a minute and still 20 k's to the top of that climb, I do think it's going to be very hard for this group. Although saying that, after being distanced briefly, our King of the Mountains, Ferreira, who's got that single point lead, he dropped away, but he's fighting his way back gradually, not getting too excited, not jumping away with that initial surge, but just picking his way back up to the front of this group. So he's riding here with a really level, cool head.
I think he's marking Rafael Lourenço, who's just in front of him.
Yeah,
he's the
other
guy who's a point behind, and he's just sat on his wheel the whole way. He's making Lourenço do the work. Lourenço's riding pretty well. He's obviously almost up onto the wheel of João Matias now, is in this green and white jersey. And the man at the front is Gaspar Gonçalves, who started the party, really. The two drop drivers, Matthew Gibson of Human Powered Health, and also now behind is Thomas Conte, racing for Aviludo Luletano. So from three groups of two, rather, we've now got a group of four, then a group of two, and then a group of the rest, about 150 odd of them.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that Matt Gibson, once they've made that sharp acceleration on this climb, this uncategorised climb, Matt Gibson, more of a sprinter, has taken out 6 big sprint wins in his career. Joined the Human Powered Health team halfway through last year, actually, a mid-season signing, quite unusual, from one of the British teams. And this is the picture of our European champion. Looks like he might be going backwards again. No real surprise. Fabio Jakobsen just getting distance on this climb, suggesting that the pace is just upped a little bit. But Jakobsen, we know, doesn't like these climbs. But contrary to that, you can just see the face there of Jai Hindley, looking pretty comfy, sat on the wheel of Lewis Askey.
View of Jake Stewart as well, just behind Lewis Askey there, the two British riders for Groupama FDJ. Yes, Fabio Jakobsen being dropped. No real surprise once it starts to get heady here. And of course trying to think about things for the next sprint stage as well in a couple of days' time.
Exactly.
I said tomorrow.
Yeah, the last real sprint opportunities. Would have been disappointed with that sprint yesterday. 4th place in the end. Just eased off when he knew that it wasn't going to be his day. Jordi Meus as well in the green jersey, keeping that warm for Alexander Kristoff. Also getting distance. No real surprise. But it's one of those things. I just feel that he opened it up just a little bit too early. Very easy for us in our armchairs, isn't it, to criticise the best sprinters in the world, but there can only be one winner, and that's the result of little errors that are made and superior power, a combination of so many different things. But so he'll be focused and ready to fight tomorrow. No point in trying to stay in the group and go deep for nothing. He might as well just get himself to the finish as fresh as he can within inside the time limit, and that shouldn't be too much of a problem at all.
The road's widening and narrowing. Decent one this for the minute. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams across the front. First glimpse of EF Education Easy Post on the left-hand side. I tell you what, their jersey designers are going to be busy, aren't they? They're winning national championships everywhere, and one of their national champions, close to the front there in third wheel, very good climber. Of course, we're talking about the national champion of Eritrea, Merawi Kudus. Kudus has a special relationship with Portugal because it was during the first lockdown of the COVID pandemic that Merawi Kudus was stuck in Portugal. He didn't move, he lived and trained there for a while. And he says he has a real affinity with the people. He says he loves how friendly everybody is here. He likes the weather, he likes the roads. And Merawi Kudus says that he doesn't get a chance to race in Portugal often, but he does feel at home here. They'll be cheering for him. Certainly the cycling fans will know his story and his relationship with Portugal, and well, he's very, very happy to be racing in Portugal. So a very nice story for EF Education Easy Post. An adopted Portuguese rider for this week is Merawi Kudus, the national champion of Eritrea.
Yeah, they've had a cracking start to the year, haven't they, EF, as we look at Matt Gibson, soon to be reabsorbed by the peloton. Lovely flowing descent here. Gorgeous day, a little bit better than yesterday. Started off raining yesterday, then brightened up a little bit, but a proper sunny day. Still not too warm though, only about 15 or 16 degrees as the gap has come down a little bit. Now 39 seconds.
Issues for Scottson, issues for Miles Scottson, the former Australian champion riding for Groupama FDJ. It's a back wheel change that is required. Not the sort of day where they're going to be trying to lead out sprinters they were yesterday with Paul Pinwet. But you imagine that Scottson is a useful rider to set the tempo and keep that position at the front that they were holding pretty well, that they could then launch Stefan Kung and then perhaps Valentin Madouas.
Oh, massively. I mean, Miles Scottson, again, a really good all-rounder. Good time trialist, former road champion, of course. Just see the Aussie stripes on his sleeves. And you do see him as one of the, I think he's like 3rd or 4th rider to peel off when they're doing a lead-out for Arnaud Demar, for example. And he's a very, very powerful rider, but can get over the climbs pretty well as well. So he's not one of these heavier lead-out riders who's going to be distanced. So I think, and that's when you look at Lewis Askey as well and Jake Stewart, their riders can get over these smaller climbs okay. So I do think Groupama FDJ have two clear options today. Stefan Kung to not lose any time, maybe go long, who knows, and Valentin Madouas. So they've got two distinct options, and we could end up with a bit of a battle for the GC between Madouas. He said, I want to try and win this race. Firstly, I want to win some stages and buy some time ahead of the final time trial, because there are some superior time trialists here. But I do like that healthy competition within the team, a team going into a race with a couple of options and a good team built around them as well.
They have done a super job in the last few years developing young riders in their own development team who have either gone on to contracts with that team, the likes of Askey and Stewart, or have turned professional with other teams. Of course, I'm looking at Vonenberg, who's with EF Education Easy Post as well. He came through the Groupama ranks as well. In the meantime, at the front, the ranks of what's left of the breakaway, they've been having a right go at each other. João Matias went once, he was caught. He thought about going again then. And in the meantime, the King of the Mountains is playing this really well, isn't he? Antonio Ferreira is just following the man in the light blue there, who's trying to sneak away from him. That man in the light blue is trailing by a single point, and that's Rafael Lorenzo. And a special hat off to Lorenzo and Ferreira in particular, because they've been in the breakaway 2 days running now, but I feel that breakaway is about to end now, Matt Stevens. Quite a while, a good 10 k's or so before we get to the next classified climb.
Yeah, and we've got a small climb before that, before we kick up to that one.
We're into the final 30 kilometres now on day 2 in the Volta Algarve. Tour of the Algarve 2023 edition is the 49th edition of the race. And it's a race that has gone from strength to strength over the last 20 to 30 years. Coming into the very top echelons of the sport inside the last 15, 20 years. But a lot of good British professionals used to come and race down here, didn't they? Back in your day racing as well, Matt, I guess that this was a pretty interesting race. And of course, you know, Tim Harris came here and picked up a few wins in the 80s, didn't he, I think, as well?
Yeah, well, you've got the Volta Algarve, then you have the Tour of Portugal, which is an unusual race in terms of its distance. It's one of those rare races, very much like the milk race back in the 1990s, started in the 1950s, where it's a 2-week race. So it's one of the longest races outside of the Grand Tours and the week-long stage races, like your Tour de Suisse, your Tour de Romandie, etc. But a rider called Kane Theakston came over here, rode for the Portuguese team, and won that race overall, if you look back through your history books. So you're quite right, a lot of British riders have come over here and done really well. And as you say, Tim Harris, still with, I think he's with Bahrain now, isn't he, Tim? I think he's still with Bahrain, looking after their youth side of things. Spent a lot of time over here.
Now then. Tijmen Arendsman is out the back. Now, has there been an issue mechanically here? I'm not sure, because if that were the case, surely you'd have a teammate stopping left, right and centre to help. Maybe Tijmen Arendsman's not on a particularly good day here, Matt.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise, but the pace that is moving by the riders that are dropped suggests that he's actually had a bit of a problem and is getting back on now, so he's making a real effort. That is the way he's out of the saddle there, the way he's riding suggests to me he hasn't been dropped, but he's had some sort of mechanical that we haven't seen, because he's moving a lot quicker than the riders that he's picking up here. But the pace they're riding at the front means he's going pretty deep here, and the way that he's ridden over the last couple of races that we've seen, he's in good shape. We'll see, but I think he's trying to get himself back on and has had some sort of difficulty rather than being dropped there, Rob.
At the front, with only 2 riders left out in the breakaway, Lorenzo is about to be caught. The last man who will be caught is in the orange here for FAPL. That's Gaspar Gonçalves. In terms of Arendsman, are you surprised that not a single other rider from Ineos is there to help, or are we so close to the finish and they've got so many options that they keep the team together and go with one of the original plans, because we knew that they had several opportunities to find a finisher today?
Yeah, they've got Ganna, Kwiatkowski, Pidcock, Martinez, but I am a little bit surprised, but maybe he hadn't come into this race as a leader, so they just wanted to, and maybe it was one of those things that was unsighted, but it's quite an interesting one. Normally we see a rider here of his stature, in the form that he's in, somebody would have waited, but perhaps it's okay, and he's going to get on here by the looks of things. They put a little bit of a blockage on there. Keep an eye out. He nearly got taken out by the neutral service there. No wonder he's remonstrating there. Nervous moment there for the Dutchman. but I do think he's going to get back in, probably with an added bit of adrenaline from nearly being taken out by the Shimano car there.
Absolute shocker there. In the meantime, we just saw Tobias Bayer being dropped, Austrian rider from Alpecin de Koenig. And this is Gaspar Gonçalves. By the way, you mentioned Tim Harris. I know he was working for EF Education, TIBCO Silicon Valley Bank last year.
He's moved around as a journeyman, isn't he? Yeah, he's worked with lots of different teams. He's such a likeable chap, isn't he? Great
character in our sport, and really important, by the way. Not many of you watching will know this, but Tim and Josh have helped a lot of British pros go over to Belgium, live there, and really make their way. We're all back together.
Well, there we go. Kwiatkowski's waited for him. So finally, they've sent a rider back. And on a climb like this, especially with that little bit of winds blowing, just a little bit of assistance is what needed. I think we might be seeing what actually happened here to Aronsman, perhaps. Did he have a puncture?
Oh, there.
Yeah,
right
yeah, there we go. That's just yeah, it would have surprised me that he got punted on that climb, to be honest with you, Rob.
Just thought it was strange at that particular moment that there's nobody there, but there has been a reaction here. This is Michał Kwiatkowski, and again it perhaps tells you about Michał Kwiatkowski's place. He's a two-time former winner here, so. But he's not a protected rider.
No, definitely. That's a domestic deluxe with cheese, isn't it, coming back, that one?
A very warm welcome to viewers in United Kingdom and Ireland who have just joined us. We're now 28 kilometres to go. It's day 2 of 5 in the Volta Algarve in Bicicleta. It's the Tour of the Algarve, and you're seeing a real fight for positioning at the front, even before we get to our final 2 classified climbs. Today we started in the southwest in Sagres, right on the rugged, wild and windy southwest Portuguese coast. We've headed inland. We're now going uphill, and it's to our usual uphill finish at Alto da Folia. The last 5 years have seen Kwiatkowski, Pogačar, Evenepoel, Hayter and Gaudu all win here. Apart from Ethan Hayter, all strong GC riders. Ethan Hayter's win was a sensational piece of riding to win on this mountain. But also Matt Stevens, who's alongside me, Rob Hatch. It tells you a story as to how this climb can be ridden. It isn't the sort of climb, as we do see Hri Kostra and Alexander Kristoff maybe getting each other's way briefly, as it's a little breathless at the back there. We'll go back to that in a minute. But Matt, it tells you at least a little about how this climb can be ridden. It's a difficult climb, a tough climb, but one where if you can follow the wheels, if you have the team, you can see it almost like a mini mountain lead out here.
Yeah, it's a quick climb. It's only about 6% gradient, so they'll be moving up at the best part of 20, 25, 26 k's an hour, so it'll be a fast climb. So it will be selective. Some of the heavier riders will get dropped, but we should see, depending of course on how it's ridden, a slight thinning out. But if you bide your time and save energy, don't put your nose in the wind, and you've got a couple of riders around you, you see these little mini lead-outs happening. Although a couple of years ago we saw Evenepoel launch himself like a rocket out of the group that was left with about 500 metres to go. And the way for the vast majority of the climb, they actually do ride into this headwind and then pick up a little bit of a tailwind. So if somebody's really smart and got good legs and they've got good teammates around them, we might see somebody going long. I definitely do think we'll see somebody trying to go long, but given the pace they're riding at and the level that the sport is at, it's going to take something special, I think, to stay away from the group. But yeah, so it's selective but not overly selective, and a little bit tactical as well.
Today's stage, rather like yesterday, is being ridden full gas too. Yeah. I know that we often say that now, and we can be guilty of over-egging it sometimes in professional cycling, but dearie me, look at this. Kristoff hanging on for now, but only just. Mikael Mørkøv, former Danish champion, just on his wheel. Kristoff in the yellow jersey and fighting to honour that jersey. He's over this next little climb. the man who had beaten the sprint yesterday, Fabio Jakobsen, who I think we can all agree was probably the pre-race favourite, has already been dropped a little while ago, and he'll be thinking about tomorrow's sprint. Next, though, once we descend from this, we head to our next classified climb, Matt, and it's sort of the aperitif, isn't it, for what's to come at the end. It's a climb called Bቐतात. It's one that we habitually see in the build-up to Alto de Foyer, so it's nothing new. 6.4 kilometres long, and it's got sections at about, 7.5%. It's fairly steady. It's not too different to our final climb today.
No, not at all. It will be... It's very, very similar, actually. There's not much at all between them. So, and the climb they've just been up, they're all these main road climbs, well engineered, good tarmac, nice and wide, fast climbs, basically. Although we do have another small climb before we get to that one. So the climb they've just been up, we've got another little kick, then we drop down, then we go up again. So we've got, in a moment, we'll start heading up another climb, then dropping down towards it. So it's quite a challenging last few kilometres on this stage, up and down. Quite a few riders have been are starting to struggle, but Alexander Kristoff will fight as long as he can, honouring the jersey, but also if he can perform a role for one of his teammates later on, he's going to do that, and that shows that generosity of spirit, that real camaraderie that they have in the team, and that we see across the board in cycling. If there's a role that somebody can play, they're not going to necessarily pull the pin unless they really have to. So great to see Kristoff fighting. He's back in that group, and no doubt we'll see him back at the front very shortly. Matteo Trentin, you can just see the former European champion moving through to the front for UAE. He'll be an important rider today, especially for João Almeida. And we've not mentioned Ivo and Rui Oliveira as well, two other Portuguese riders that will want to shine and try and deliver Almeida to the finish. So UAE, let's talk about that team for a moment. Definitely all in for Almeida with some very, very punchy riders. But yeah, we do wish all the best to Mark Hirschi. That's a nasty crash, wasn't it, yesterday?
Big day for Finn Flish of Black then today to prove himself in the mountains. Very talented riders. He's Stefan Bissiger. He's in that pink jersey there, just in front of Kudus. I mentioned it. Lived for a short while in Portugal. Now Kwiatkowski's back to the front. Ineos are on the right as we look at it, just out of your picture now. Quinton Hermans is true to his word. He's playing domestique for the moment. Nicola Conci, supposedly their protected rider today. What a superstar Michał Kwiatkowski is. There is just no ego whatsoever. Former road world champion. A man who can do the business, winning a couple of times in the Amstel Gold Race. He's won this race overall twice. And he is up there at the front, having brought back a young teammate who sits in third wheel there wearing 41, who's Timon Ardensman. He's now at the front contributing for the whole of the team. Interestingly, at the back of the line there for Ineos, where number 44 is Filippo Ganna. Tom Pidcock moves up as well as we say goodbye, I think probably for the definitive time this time, given his demeanour here, to Alexander Kristoff. Super win yesterday, strong ride today, honouring that jersey, and there he is in the yellow jersey, but today he'll be passing it on to another rider.
Yeah, there's only so many of those efforts you can actually make, Rob. He fought, got back in again. And all this as well, when you look towards the classics, working hard in these races, getting the wins is important, riding as best you can for the team, but just getting those hard miles in as well. So making those sorts of efforts is only going to help build that base as he moves towards the classics too. And I think they're expecting a lot of him in the classics later this year. But yeah, talk about Michał Kwiatkowski. What an example to younger riders of how to ride as a teammate. He can win. He's got a killer instinct. He's quick, he's intelligent, but also he will ride himself into the ground. And one of the moments of his career, aside from the wins, was when he rode himself to a standstill in the service of Chris Froome 5 or 6 years ago on the Tour. He literally had to put his foot down. He could not pedal another pedal stroke. Emptied the tank completely, and that's the sort of rider you want on your team. That's smart, can give you that advice, knows where to position himself, but importantly will give it everything. And that's the sort of rider you need.
Marco Haller out the back, and look at that, 3 riders from EF Education Easy Post as well. And Stefan Bissiger, any thoughts of whether he's going to hang on and try for GC? They are out, they are gone. He's not going to give it a go. Oeindel is there with him, and Julius Vondenberg. So Stefan Bissiger thinking of stage victory, I'm sure, in the time trial later in this week, not trying to hang on for GC. And well, when you see the riders they've got, they have some couple of top real climbers, Christian Eiking, Mērhavi Kudus, who we talked about, and Mok Padun of Ukraine.
Yeah, they've got a decent team. No real surprise to see these riders out the back. I thought he might have hung on a little bit more, but maybe just focusing on that singular stage win. As we can now see Soudal moving through to the front as well. There is the little rider that we, Ilan van Wilder. There, he's the rider we think will be the team leader for the overall general classification for Soudal Quickstep. It's primarily a team of lead-out riders, rouleurs, and then the diminutive climber from that team. So he's looking good at the moment there. But Tom Pidcock looks focused, looks easy, doesn't he? And still got several riders around him too.
A huge milestone for Soudal Quickstep has been passed, hasn't it? 900 wins now with that victory for Mauri van Sevenant in Oman. They're flying at the Volta Algarve. Inside 23 kilometres to go. Penultimate climb coming up. This is the little rise that isn't classified before we get there. Still to come, the Alto de Picota. Then around 4 or 5 kilometres, slightly downhill, sinuous country road, before a real drop down to the traditional finishing climb on what is usually the second stage, Alto de Folla. This is Matteo Trentin. He's done his job for UAE Emirates, who today, by the way, are minus Mark Hirschi. He crashed yesterday. He's broken his arm, I'm afraid. He's expected to be out for a couple of months. All the best to the Swiss rider. A blow not to have him here, so the likes of Rui Oliveira, who is in action on the track, Finn Fisher-Black, who's a really talented young climber from New Zealand, are having to support João Almeida, the Portuguese champion. Another race into another turn as we start to go uphill and head into Picota. 6.5 kilometres of climbing from here. Average gradient of around 6%, goes up to 7.5, goes down to around 5. It's fairly consistent. These are nice roads on which to ride your bike.
Yeah, it's a nice, smooth, even climb, although a fair bit of selection has already been done. I'd estimate there's probably 50 riders left in that group, so a good tempo being set already on these small preliminary climbs. But the gradient that we're going to be looking at here is this, and a launch off the front. Well, no, it's not.
This is Laurens de Plus.
Yeah. This isn't a look. This looks like it's but the way he's riding again here, just by the body language, the speed that he's maintaining. De Plus has been riding well this season. He's clearly had a bit of an issue, and he's trying to pick his way back through the group there. That isn't the body language of somebody who's given up the ghost. He's trying to get back in, but he's a fair way back, which is a big shame.
Yeah, De Plus, Pluskia, as he's known. Very strong form in Valencia, setting up tailgate and Hart for that stage win. Number 87 just alongside him has been dropped. That's Mathieu Louvel, racing for Arkea Samsic, the French team. You're looking at the wheel there of Timon Arendsman. In fact, this is what's happened then. It's a bike, isn't it? Related incident to what we saw from Timon Arendsman. So I tell you what then, that is excellent, and you know, we wonder what was happening with the teamwork. In fact, they played it really well, because the Plus has stayed with him, given him his bike. What we then saw on the camera was Michał Kwiatkowski drop back, so obviously we did not see that image at the time, but that is fantastic teamwork, you have to say. They've played it perfectly there. Yeah,
it's I think this is, when you look at this, the range of sizes of riders in Ineos Grenadiers, from Tom Pidcock and Martinez all the way through to Ghana, they've pretty much got every single bike size. But it was De Plus who was riding at the moment on Arendsman's bike, and Kwiatkowski still on the front. As you say, this climb goes up in little stages. Jonathan Castro-Viejo still there as well. Such an invaluable player for that team. He really, really is. Already on phenomenal form. And again, as well as that ability against the clock, he's really found his niche as one of these super domestiques. And I can't remember when and if he dips in form. He's so consistent all the way through the year. He's ridiculously reliable, as well as the ability, that the power that he has. It's that reliability and that predictability, and the fact that you can rely on him, that's so important, Rob.
Norwegian national champion being dropped out the back. It's the rider Rasmus Tiller. Good strong rider in the sprints, isn't he? Helped to set up yesterday. I think he was the second to last rider for Alexander Kristoff, just before Søren Vardenskjold. Now he's the Norwegian champion, and we're watching Laurens de Plus still trying to get back, still trying to work. You talked about Jonathan Castro-Viejo there. I'm wondering, is there a climb in world professional cycling at the very top level that is more made for Jonathan Castroviejo than the Alto de Foya. If he gets to the front, he could do some real damage there.
Yeah, it's a Castro climb, isn't it? It really, really is. It's that kind of, it's a TT climb, isn't it? It's just on the cusp. Well, it's almost perfect between 5 and 7%, optimised for riders that can race well against the clock. Not too many changes of pitching gradient. It means you can get into that real sustainable rhythm that is very, very hard to attack off, and that's what we're seeing Michał Kwiatkowski do at the moment. There is Castroviejo in second place, Danny Martinez, that familiar bobbing style of his, in third, and then we have Tom Pidcock and Adelsman just behind him, and still the powerfully built Philip Hoganna. And just see a Bauke Mollema, a rider we've not spoken too much about. Mollema just there for Trek Segafredo as well.
Sits on the wheel of the former world champion, the Portuguese hero, Rui Costa, the winner of the Volta a la Comunitat Valenciana the other week. There were other circumstances that unfortunately we didn't really see on the camera, weren't there? That was one of cycling's many great recent mysteries. What happened? How did the crash occur? I'll tell you what, it was certainly dramatic and wonderful to see unfold, even though we didn't see the moment of all the chaos behind when Costa attacked. But he picked his moment. He is certainly in form, and he is one of the riders of the start of the 2023 season. I think that last phrase I uttered was something that not many people, I certainly wouldn't have forecasted it anyway.
No. And also, interestingly, just behind him was Gubi Goossens as well. We talked about him yesterday, those 2 wins. He looks pretty easy. Just by looking at his face, his body language, he looks like he's riding very well within himself. So Costa and Goossens are the riders to watch out for from Intermarché. But still, Kwiatkowski on the front. This is some long turn by the pole, isn't it? They're about halfway up this climb now. They drop off, and then they start well with 7k's to go. 7.7k's to go is the length of the final climb.
They just went through the 2 kilometre to go mark to the top of this climb, Bicota, that little yellow sign that said PM. Stands for Mountain Prize, Premio Montaña. So here is Kwiatkowski, the Polish star, Castroviejo from the Basque Country, and then Martinez, who hails from Colombia. He wears number 46 there. 47 is Tom Pidcock. Says he wants to be on top form all the way from Omloop het Nieuwsblad to Liège. And he is one of those few classics riders, a la maybe Philippe Gilbert, who could probably target everything.
Definitely. Ridiculously versatile, as we know. Is a thoroughbred bike racer, just wants to race his bike. Every time he swings his leg, gets on the saddle and clips in, he's in the zone. He wants to race. You run out of superlatives really for Tom Pidcock, and when you look at the riders in this group, when you look at the sort of finish that we're predicting a smaller group coming to the line together. Still opportunities maybe for somebody who's particularly confident to go long. But when you look at an out-and-out sprint between the riders we've got here, you have to tip Pidcock as one of the favourites now, along with João Almeida, maybe Rui Costa. They're the riders that I'm looking at. Actually, Higuita, he's somebody who's ridiculously explosive as well, that we shouldn't underestimate too.
Yeah, I don't really want to take anything away from David Gaudu, but you think about what happened and how it happened last year. Higuita was looking mightily strong, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think he got his revenge though, won the final stage, didn't he? I think Higuita.
He did. Another rider by the wayside for Aker Samsic, just out of our picture there. This is Christian Sbaragli, who's hanging in brilliantly. He is quite the bike rider.
Could also spar on the right-hand side. It's Kasper Asgreen, also still there. Kudus is also there, the Eritrean champion, as you said. Costa looks very comfortable out the saddle there, doesn't he? But this is a great ride, as you say, by Christian Sbaragli. He's turned into a really versatile all-rounder, hasn't he? Again, another really reliable domestique hanging onto the back of this group, which can't be more than 40 riders now, Rob.
Madouas on the left-hand side, wearing 35 in the blue. Just behind him, Vacek. 24 is Odd Christian Eiking. 22 there also in the pink is Magnus Kort, who's still there.
Yes, I did have him out as a possible rider for today. You know, he can climb well, and he again, amongst the list I've just talked through, I should add him as one of the riders who can really sprint well. Well, Kwiatkowski's been on the front for the last 6 or 7k's. Took the last uncategorised climb down the other side and back up again.
And he's less than a kilometre from the top of Picota, the penultimate climb of the day. Bora Hansgrohe try to amass a few men on the right-hand side. 3 of them, in fact, in their green, red and black jerseys. Jai Hindley is one of those riders. Fredrik Vamdahl is another. And Sergio Higuita back in the green again now, given the fact we've had nationals. Esteban Chavez, by the way, is the brand new Colombian champion.
I can't wait to see him in the jersey racing. That picture that went all over the internet of him crying on the podium, it was really quite touching, wasn't it? I'm really looking forward to seeing him in that jersey racing this year.
Malcolm Mollema and Nathaniel Tesfazion. He was in the top 10 yesterday as well. We know he can certainly climb. We saw that at the Giro d'Italia, didn't we? We saw it when he was riding for Gianni Savio's team, which was then Androni Giocattoli. His team, by the way, now is a 3rd division team in Colombia. GW Shimano it will be known by. But Tesfazion, another of those riders, they moved up to the top level, and he has Malcolm Mollema looking after him here. So the Eritrean fast man who can certainly climb. Again, this could be a stage that is made for him.
He's very, very quick. A couple of those he's not afraid to get involved in a proper big bunch kick either. He was.
We saw that yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So he was 7th yesterday. He's 6th on a stage, the Tour Down Under, but is very, very quick indeed. Another very shrewd signing by. I think Savio had him signed for a long time, and he was bought out of his contract. The classic tactic of Gianni Savio. But no, it's another rider to conjure with today, without a shadow of a doubt.
2 wins last year for him in Rwanda. The second time he won the GC there, by the way. So he can compete on the hills, and we know that it's a hilly race down there in Rwanda. He also won a stage in Italy in the Adriatica Ionica race. Still Michał Kwiatkowski fights. This is Kasper Asgreen who's making a move on the left-hand side now. Looks as though he's after King of the Mountains points in a position, maybe more importantly here, as they come and descend into the finale.
Yeah, it did look like a late surge to get the Mountains points, but he is continuing with the effort, so he's not making himself unpopular by just rolling the points and then dropping back into the line. He's taking it right over the top as well. You would imagine looking after Ilan van Wilder, the 22-year-old from Soudal Quickstep, who is still in this group. And Kwiatkowski briefly will be happy for a wheel to sit on after that long pull on the front. And now we've got a few Ks down before we commence the final climb. Also a couple of riders there from Jumbo Visma. You'd imagine that would be Foss and Sam Oman moving up on the left-hand side.
Only 5 riders on the road for Jumbo Visma at the moment. Here's Lemre as a non-finisher yesterday. Also Tim van Dijken, who was up there in the sprint yesterday, and he's still here at the back wearing number 62. Good young rider from the development squad who's moved up to the senior squad as the former national champion of Denmark, winner of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, absolute all-round superstar. Kasper Asgreen, jersey open, and it was clear that he was coming to the front to do some work, wasn't it? Ilan van Wilder sits in around 15th place.
Yep. I can't spot any other riders in this group from Soudal Quickstep at the moment, but a good bit of riding here done by Asgreen, who'll be looking again. Slightly disappointing Classics campaign for him last year, but again, this is all good prep, not just to set up his teammate today, but get those hard miles in the bank ahead of the Classics. But probably 30-35 riders left in this group, so already, Rob, a significant selection before we actually get to the climb itself.
A little more than usual, I'd say. We've been talking it up all day, and in fact throughout yesterday as well, and the usual thing on this particular stage is that we have big-ish groups coming to the finish for what is a mountaintop finish, and one of the first mountaintop finishes that many of these riders will have taken part in each season. Comes each and around the same time, doesn't it, aside for 2021, where we had early February lockdowns in much of Europe, and these races certainly here in Andalusia had to be changed, didn't they, and raced in May at the same time as the Giro d'Italia. This is Matthias Vacek at the back. He's done really well to just hang on. That's Jonas Koch just in front of him in the green jersey for Bora Hansgrohe. Number 24 is Odd Christian Eiking, Norwegian rider for EF Education Easy Post. And Christian Sbaragli is still there in the navy blue. Remember, we heard from new signing Quinten Hermons earlier today. He seemed to insist. Well, he was insistent, there's no doubt about it. He said it. Today we are working for Nicola Conci. Interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, from what I've seen in the peloton, it has indeed been Adamans who's been sat in the wind a little bit with Conchi on his wheel. Looking pretty comfortable, actually, but Conchi looking pretty relaxed as well. But with Sparagli there, that's cool. They've got 3 riders in that front group. There, we've got that first glimpse today anyway of the finish. It is very exposed, so the wind will play a part, even though there's only about a 10-kilometre-an-hour wind blowing today. The speeds they're going at, it is something to consider. It is significant because of the change of direction as they swing round into the finish. And there's that Portuguese flag there, Rob. Looks like a little bit of a cross headwind there.
Cross headwind for that final turn, and you've been talking the headwind up, and I think you're exactly right, because look at that. As you come into that final turn, the wind is blowing right in your face. So any late moves, or any moves inside the last couple of kilometres, which, let's face it, that's when the moves are going to have to come. So any moves that are made here, you're going to really have to be brave, have to be strong, and you're going to have to time it right.
Yeah. Importantly, you're going to want a couple of teammates around you as well to put you in the right place at the right time. And patience will be a real virtue on this climb. Because I think it will split a little bit more, but when you have a headwind on a climb, it's far easier to sit in the wheels as well. So I don't know. And we've seen a good pace being set. I don't think it's quite infernal just yet. We might see a couple of riders drop, but as it's a headwind most of the way up, a lot easier just to sit in the wheels and far harder to sit on the front. So basically anybody with several teammates with him is going to have a big benefit here.
The Alto da Foya is around 6% of an average gradient. Last 8 kilometres, and you could see it, couldn't you, on that shot there. And I don't think the end of the climb, that last kilometre that we had a quick look at from the helicopter at the side, is too misrepresentative of the whole climb. I think it represents it really well, actually. You could see the gradient. It was very steady. It does not change much at all. I mean, you've got a couple of kilometres, I think, from the end of kilometre 1 to the beginning of kilometre 4, where it's around 5%, 5.5% average. Aside from that, you're looking at the hardest kilometre being the first. That's exactly, at 9%. Yep. And then it is very, very, very steady at just over 6% for nigh on 8 kilometres.
Yeah. Just to give you a sense of how long it's going to take them to climb it, the fastest time recorded up there on Strava is from Tim Wellens back in 2020, 16.5 minutes, 16:33 to be exact. Not everybody has Strava running, so it may actually have been run quicker, but the person to the quickest recorded time, 16:33. And interestingly, Lois Ada Haste, who's the world esports champion, 21:45 for the women. So it just gives you a sense of us, how us mere mortals might be able to climb it. Probably best part of half an hour for me, I think, these days.
Mere mortals, says the man who's got British champions jerseys in his locker. Dear me. Kispa Askren taking the 6 points at the top of that climb. Next rider to be dropped is Vacek. No surprise, given the fact he worked very, very hard to get onto the back over the last climb. And we're approaching the final climb. You can just see that the remaining riders from Soudal Quickstep are making their way to the front. Kispa Askren started their little job of whoever's left, really, to work for Ilan van Wilder by going over the top of the last climb, keeping that position. He's now been joined by Van Wilder, and there was one more rider making their way up on the right-hand side as we looked at it there from the helicopter. And this is a fairly small group going into the final 10.9 kilometres of stage 2 of the Volta Algarve. The Tour of the Algarve this year, starting with a sprint yesterday in Lagos. Today we go to Alto da Foya. The last few winners of including the likes of Evenepoel and Pogacar, now Grand Tour winners. This is a climb that tends to tell us a lot about the future of a rider, and if Ilan van Wilder can be up there today, no pressure.
Indeed, some esteemed company. When you just look back at who's won this race overall, it's some actually 10 or 15 years ago we had Alessandro Petacchi and Stein de Volder win it, so it wasn't always a hilly race.
It has changed, hasn't it?
But still, the names who've won this, it's just a who's who of professional cycling. All big hitters have won this one, so yeah, winning a stage, very prestigious, and as you say, an indicator perhaps of what's to come. I've counted, Rob, roughly, using what I can see on the screen, about 35 riders in that front group, and that's where we're heading.
been cold up there recently. I'm sure I could see a little tinges of white at the top of the hill there. Yesterday it was only 14 degrees down on the coast, down on the wild Atlantic coast. Today we started there. We started in Sagres today, on the far southwest tip of Portugal. We're now just less than 10 kilometres away from our destination. Climb itself starts in 1.5 kilometres time. And you could just see why Jesper Askren in particular was interested in taking that position over the top. The road has narrowed. It's become very, very twisty. And right now, he's going to be able to lead Ilan van Wilder on to the foot of the climb.
Exactly, it's a good bit of riding there. Van Wilder at first had dropped back, and we saw Askren on his own at the front with Kwiatkowski on his wheel, who'd taken up the vast majority of the previous climb. And clearly they've been on the radio and said, get on his wheel. There's no point in riding on the front if you're sat right back there, because in a minute it gets a little bit steeper. So for the last kilometre or 1,500 metres of this descent, it's actually quite steep. Then they hit the bottom. So nothing wrong with getting yourself into a right position. It puts you, as well as physically being in a better position, although it's only a small group, what it does, Rob, it sets the tone for what's to come. This is a young rider who they're giving an opportunity to try and perform well today. You've got the Tour of Flanders winner leading him into the final climb. So as well as about physical positioning, it's about getting yourself in the right headspace and saying, right, you ride at the front with you've got Soudal Quickstep taking you into this climb, so you ride on the wheel, you don't sit back in the bunch. And I think that's come from the car, so he's moved up and is now sat on the wheel of the Dane.
They're about to ride past the natural baths, the spa. That must be tempting at this time, knowing what is to come and the pain that they're about to inflict upon themselves. But there is glory and reward at the end for the fastest across the line. 8.3 kilometres to go. It's the first uphill test of 2 this week in the Algarve. We go to Foya today, to Mayao on Saturday. It's time for what's become an early season classic, the usual lightning fast descent. Just over a quarter of an hour it takes from riders from bottom to top. The likes of Samuel Sanchez, Dan Martin, Pogacar, Evenepoel and Gaudu have won up here and then gone on to very, very big things in climbing terms. Here we go, the final turn before we head into the climb. It's Soudal Quickstep. Remember now, a GC team, especially on the Iberian Peninsula, after Remco Evenepoel won the Vuelta last year, who lead us in. Jesper Askren for Ilan van Wilder. They have one more rider a little further back, just trying to hang on at the moment. We can't quite see who that is, but Askren is doing his job. Behind though, look at all those bodies in red and dark blue. Ineos Grenadiers still have Kwiatkowski there. They've got Arendsman, Castro Viejo, De Plus, Ganna, Martinez and Pidcock. It is a formidable lineup on a climb that really is suited to those teams who can ride at the front, sacrifice riders. And one rider who's ridden for his team today is Jonas Koch, who's off the back, out the back. And there's a rider less in the group now, Matt. We're on the climb.
We are indeed. This is that steeper part that you said. It's around about 8.9%, 9% for the first K. So that will, because it flattens out after that, it shows you that the average is probably from this point onwards after the first K just on 6%. So these early steep slopes, and also
Quinten Hermans.
Yeah, his job's done it.
Certainly not going to be number one after tonight. Of course, it's his first stage race with his brand new team, and he came to this saying that Nicola Conci would be the man to ride. So Ineos Grenadiers take up at the front as Jesper Askren can continue no more. That means that Ilan van Wilder, leader for Soudal Quickstep, will sit in the train there, or at least just on the back of it, alongside those Ineos Grenadiers wheels. On the left, as we look at it now, Alpecin de Koning getting ready to try to work for Nicola Conci. Sandro Mörese is there to do that job, as we see Askren out the back, having done a very, very good warm-up for the classics with that effort.
The Mörese looks good, doesn't it? Very good. You can just see Conci out of the saddle, just behind Tom Pidcock there. It's the Italian. And Danny Martinez just looks the same. Whatever climb, he's got that same style, face fixed in that position. Pidcock in a big gear out of the saddle. Arendsman just fiddling with his head unit there, zip down on his jersey, and Hindley looks pretty decent on the side, having a conversation there just on the right of your screen with Sergio Higuita, just pointing to his neck there. I wonder what the issue was there. Seems to have a bandage on or something around his neck. Not too sure what the situation is there.
I was wondering whether that was the sign for I am cooked already.
Could be, yeah. That's the international sign for I'm done, is the thumb on the underside of the chin. It's quite Latin, isn't it? But it's definitely the sign for I'm cooked, because Kwiatkowski is turning up the pressure cooker. He is turning on the gas, to stick to the cooking analogy. He's full of beans, isn't he, today?
And Castro Viejo is still yet to come on a climb that's designed for him. Yeah, we just saw Hindley, didn't we, having a word with Sergio Higuita there. Hindley may be ready to move Higuita up, and Higuita responding not in the most positive way. Higuita since drifted right to the back of this group. There he is, left-hand side, green and red jersey wearing number 12. Just behind him, wearing number 81, is Warren Barguil. There for Arkea Samsic, and still there hanging on for Soudal Quick-Step is Rémi Cavagna. Remember, he will be trying to hang on because the last day is a time trial.
Yeah, also, watch out. I think I've spotted Oscar Onley, the young British rider, Team DSM, in the mix as well. Very good climber from Scotland.
Six and a half kilometres to go. The hardest part of the climb's up the way. It's fairly consistent from here, and they are going to fly up it. Tobias Foss in the yellow jersey there. World champion in the time trial. He'll be able to wear the rainbow stripes on Sunday. That's unless he's wearing the yellow jersey. He'll be hoping to be there or thereabouts. That's his aim. But he's going to have to contend with this lot, because they have turned up in their numbers. Ineos Grenadiers with Kwiatkowski there. This is Ganna just sitting on the back. But it's not just about them. It's about a whole host of top teams here. Intermarché, we know, team of the moment. Rui Costa is here and waiting again. EF Education Easy Post, they can't stop winning. But Magnus Cort is now starting to slip and slide a little bit.
Yeah, pressure's starting to be really piled on at the front there. Two riders from Arkea Samsic, as well as Warren Barguil. It was Eli Gesbert, who's there as well. So two riders from Arkea in the mix. And also, I have spotted, looking pretty comfortable, the rider that we've tipped maybe for the overall. Stefan Kung is still in the mix, looking pretty comfy too.
You mentioned Eli Gebert there. He is a former stage winner. Took a stage here 2 years ago. As we see Jai Hindley with what looks like Frederik Vandal. Higuita still hanging around the back, just about, I think.
Yeah, maybe it was genuine. Quite often you see riders doing that joke in a joking fashion, but I think that was a direct, proper communication, because it's going to dictate what Hindley actually does. Are you okay? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Do you want any help on this climb? So I do think that was quite an honest appraisal as Sparagli, after hanging on, you know, very, very well with 5.6 Ks to go, finally is ejected from the dwindling peloton.
Christian Sbaragli losing contact then, the rider from Tuscany in Italy. As we see the Polish former world champion won that prize on the Iberian Peninsula, where we're racing now, just over the border in Spain. Pontevedra was the World Championships in 2014. 9 years since his World Championship win. Again, no ego. Fully committed for his whole team and taking them into the final 5 kilometres here.
Is in some shape. Remember, he's pulled on the last 3 climbs. The categorised climb of the Picotto, the climb just before that, the descent, and now the first part of this climb. 5 Ks to go, some turn, and single-handedly has been responsible for the size of the peloton here. As João Almeida still in the centre, just towards the back, they're nestled on the wheel, I think it is, of Finn Fisher-Black. Still the 2 riders from Intermarché there, Kurt Gussens and Rui Costa. They've got a couple more. They've got at least 3 in this front group, actually.
Finn Fisher-Black from a very good cycling family. Niamh Fisher-Black, professional as well.
The under-23 world road champion, of course.
And some absolute superstars here, as well as those superstar names. That's Sandro Møres wearing number 6, 33 in the blue, as well as Stefan Kung, who you mentioned. Also there for Intermarché, Rune Hergots, Kobe Goossens. And we're seeing those riders from EF Education Easy Post, led by Merawi Kudus. Eli Gebert remains there for Arkea Samsic, alongside Simon Guglielmi, another of those graduates of the Groupama FDJ Academy. And Filippo Ganna, rather like Rémi Cavagna, just hanging there, waiting and seeing how long they can survive.
Exactly. Sitting in the wheels. The other rider there for Team DSM, I can confirm, I did see Oscar Onley, the rider with a 6-year contract for Team DSM, 20 years of age, from Kelso up in the north of England, south of Scotland, should I say. And
where have we gone there?
No, sorry, that was a bit of a faux pas. The north of England, blimey.
Don't turn on Twitter tonight, Matt.
I'm not going to. I'm already falling upon my sword. Oscar Onley, the Scot there, is in that group, but also it's got the American with him, Kevin Vermaak as well. That's the young rider from America. So another rider,
Murisa. Out the back there, Murisa, with just over 4 kilometres to go now. Ganna hanging on. Peloton still thinning out here, Matt, and yet again, just those watts being put out by Michał Kwiatkowski and company. We did see João Almeida moving up. Tessfazion still there with Bauke Mollema as well. He's still one of the fastest riders in the group.
Yeah, it is Foss and Omen as well. We've not really talked too much about those riders. Foss and Omen in the yellow and black of Jumbo-Visma. Costa looking good there. Slightly more focused look on his face. And still, we've got Magnus Cort Nielsen at the back holding the wheels. Such a tenacious rider. One of the smartest riders in the peloton as well. You certainly won't want to take him all the way to the finish.
Joaquim Silva still hanging on for Ifapel. That's a very good ride from one of the third division teams. I think he might be the only rider from any of the domestic teams in this bunch now.
Looks like it to me, Rob. Yeah, can't spot anybody else.
Last couple of bits of effort from Michał Kwiatkowski with 3.5 kilometres to go, and then it will be Castroviejo time. He still has not had the wind in his face. There's plenty of that wind to come towards the top, by the way. It is a headwind, so he'll need all the power he can muster. But after Castroviejo, you're looking at Pidcock, you're looking at Martinez, and then Artsman as well. It's a really strong lineup. One of the riders going backwards now from X, it seems. They have one rider remaining towards the back of the peloton.
There we go. Kwiatkowski's just pulled over on to the right-hand side now as we look a little bit further back. And this is Johannesson. A bit of a surprise. Johannesson getting dropped. There is Kwiatkowski. No surprise. That was a heck of a turn by Michał Kwiatkowski. It really was impressive. And it is the turn of Castroviejo. Tom Pidcock looks around to see Martinez and also Adelsman, who's looking good. Interesting where Pidcock's riding here.
Just feels like he's moved behind Dani Martinez, doesn't it? Of course, the closer we get to the finish, he will start to think about what he might be able to do in a possible small sprint.
The thing is, we know Pidcock can time trial well as well, you see. That's the thing. They've got two clear options, but it looks if Castroviejo is going to set the way for Martinez to pick things up, to set up Pidcock, and also for Aronsman to be there or thereabouts and not lose any time. That's what it looks like to me.
Elie Gebel just sitting with Filippo Ganna at the back. Still a large group, and this is what we expected. It's playing true to form at the moment. 3 kilometres to go, and one man in form is here, Castroviejo. The last time we had a finish like this, a sort of lead out at the top of a climb, that was in Valencia the other week, wasn't it? Theo Gegenhardt finished it off. Castroviejo really made it. The goal was scored by Gegenhardt. The assist came from Castroviejo.
That certainly was. You could just see, look at João Almeida just in the centre. That's slightly obscured now, sat on the wheel of Rui Costa, the two Portuguese favourites, the former world champion, the current Portuguese road race champion. There's a couple of riders really starting to struggle on the back. And one rider getting that's Milan Veda. He's getting dropped, and Gebel also being dropped as well now.
Milan Father, the mountain biker, has been dropped. Yellow jersey there, just at the left and base of the picture now. You can see him going backwards. One man moving up through the group is Magnus Cort. Pink jersey on his back, just moved around halfway up of the group after previously sitting on the back. Riders now with just over 2 kilometres to the finish, starting to think that they have to be there when the gaps continue to open closer to the top. Here is Magnus Cort, and if Tessfatzion's there and Pidcock's there in terms of fast finishers, he is there to provide some serious competition.
Yeah, and just look who's in the wheel of his former teammate. from a couple of years ago. Higuita on just slotting into the wheel 2 years ago, of course, not last year. Higuita on the wheel of Magnus Cort Nielsen. Just behind him was Oscar Onley. So Onley, the young British rider from Scotland, sorry guys, moving up as well as the pace continues to pick up at 1,800 metres to go. What a turn here.
Tremendous stuff from Oscar Onley there, as Filippo Ganna still on the back, but there was a little bit of a gap opening up for the moment there. I think he was ready to close it. In fact, I tell a lie, I've spotted a rider from the Kelly team on the left-hand side. So that is 2 riders now still in there from our domestic teams from Portugal. 1.5 kilometres to go. It's still Castro Viejo here.
Certainly it's a heck of a turn here. Aronsman out of the saddle there. Jai Hindley not too far away as well, looking very comfortable, it has to be said, but separated from his teammate. Stefan Kung there, number 33 on the left-hand side, still looking good. Watch out as well for Anton Scharming. He's had a good start to the year. He's there in the yellow and red of Uno X as Stefan Kung starts to move up on the outside.
1.5 kilometres remain. Headwind into the face of these riders now. A reminder that the yellow jersey, Alexander Kristoff, has been dropped already, so we will have a brand new leader of this race. It is very likely to be the stage winner today, as Merawi Kudus, just to the right of your picture, starts to move up and away, making sure he's right up there and following the moves. Remember, Eritrean national champion, spent time living in Portugal. He loves this place. He loves these roads. The local fans love him. He sits right on the wheel now of Ilan van Wilder, and just behind him, Magnus Cort, the man who could be about to finish it off for his EF Education Easy Post team. As is habitual on this stage, to Alto de Folla on day 2 of the Tour of the Algarve each and every spring. We have quite a large group going into the final kilometre. The wind is blowing a gale up here, and it is Ineos Grenadiers with 4 riders at the front, 1 at the back, and that rider at the back is Filippo Ganna, who's hanging on and waiting for the time trial at the end of the week. But here we look, and I think we'd have to expect that it would be Tom Pidcock to have a go now for that team, wouldn't it, inside the final K, once they get to what we expect to be a sprint. As the wind drops at this side, I can tell you when they come around the corner to the finish, it will be in their faces.
It will indeed. No, it's a pretty small group still. This is a long pull by Jonathan Castroviejo. Danny Martinez is the rider on his wheel. Then we have Tom Pidcock. It does look like they're going to try and set up Pidcock, but as you said, it is a very complicated sprint. You can see how hard it is on the front, and they're fanning across the road, giving you that real distinct impression that it is that headwind. And just look who's winding up on the right-hand side there. Magnus Cort Nielsen looking now very dangerous, and Mollema too on the right.
Mollema moving up and trying to see if he can get a space for Tesfazion, I think, as well. Madouas in that blue jersey. But at the moment, while this rhythm is on, it's almost impossible to launch an attack here, Matt.
It is indeed. Fossa moving up on the outside as well. This is where the road flattens ever so slightly. Still, it is Jonathan Castroviejo. You can just see also Rui Costa moving up on the left-hand side. They're all spreading across the road. It's going to be a very complicated late sprint here. And moving up on the right-hand side, I think this is a Bora Hansgrohe. It is Hindley with Higuita on his wheel, or the other way around, I think, or is it? Yeah.
It looks as though Vandal's right up there. This Vandal is pulling at the front now. Higuita's on the right-hand side following the wheels at the back of the green jersey. Hindley is in second position here at the moment. So Castroviejo done. We wait and we watch to see what Pidcock might be able to do. Just in front of him, you've got a couple of riders there as well on the left-hand side. DSM start to wind this up now with one of the 2 riders that they have in there. Groupama FDG as well. There's still this right turn to come now, and they come up towards the finish. Ilan van Wilder's following the wheels here now with 300 metres to go. It's bunched, it's ready. Who can hack the pace? You can see that Mollema is there trying to do something if he can as well on the right-hand side, bobbing left to right. On the left, as we look at it, you can see that Rui Costa follows the wheel. It's Ilan van Wilder who launches through the centre. He's there for Soudal Quickstep, but Rui Costa's on the wheel again. Jai Hindley's up there, Valentin Madouas as well, and then Nicola Conchi. Still though, it's Van Wilder going all the way to the line. Look at Jai Hindley trying to come around. Rui Costa's there as well, but it's still Ilan van Wilder, still Van Wilder, still Van Wilder. There he is to the finish. What a ride this is, but trying to come around on the line, and I think just snatching it is Magnus Cort. Oh yes. My word, Van Wilder was celebrating there. But Magnus Cort on the inside. We'll have to see the replay, but I feel that his wheel might have crossed the line first, Matt Stevens.
Well, Magnus Cort Nielsen, we had him down as a threat, but he was nowhere. His timing was absolutely impeccable. He is like an assassin. He just bided his time. Was out of our picture. I thought he'd gone, but he did. I think he did sneak it on the inside. Van Wilder was weaving all over the road, looked like he got it, put his arm up to celebrate, as you said, but on the left-hand side, on the inside, I think we're looking at our winner. What an absolutely superb performance from Magnus Cort Nielsen. EF Education Easy Post are having an absolutely tremendous season.
Look at the pink jersey here, because he's a long way off. He follows the wheel of Pidcock. We know that Kudus is up there as well on the left-hand side, teammate of Cort, but look at Cort. He goes and goes. Van Wilder's the man who launches it early. I kept repeating his name there, Matt, because he seemed to stay at the front for an age. Yeah. I wondered and waited when he would die off, but he couldn't do. It looked as though Costa, Madouas, one of those was ready to come through. Jai Hindley rode as well. Look at Nicola Conchi on the bottom right of your picture, and here, Magnus Cort's nowhere to be seen, Matt.
I know, look how much ground that he makes up. Still out of, as you see what Madouas there, it looks as if it's between these. So look at he finds that gap on the inside, sits down, starts his sprint again, and finds the shortest line. He basically cuts the corner, or he does get it. He gets it on the line, I think. It was a late lunge. Well, what a tremendous sprint. He was unsighted from us, and then he comes through on the inside. That little drift left opened the door, and look at this final stamp. Oof.
From that shot, it looks like he has it, doesn't it?
It looks like he has it. Well, that is going to be very tight again, but just look at how smart. Two little sprints for the price of one. Seated, sees the gap, goes again, stamps on the pedals with that ridiculous Christmas that he has, and finds that gap on the inside, looks across, and there's that late throw, and there it is. I don't think Van Wilder is going to get that one. The judge looked a little bit shocked as well on the inside there.
Yeah, because I had good legs. I was just boxed in, and I couldn't really find my way out in the sprint until the final.
Yes, the first one here.
No, the emotion is about the winner or no?
Yeah, I don't know now.
He doesn't know. The way he was celebrating a moment ago, I think he does.
We have to it looked like it from our angle, but we'll have to wait for confirmation. But what a thriller. Another real thriller.
Still they roll in behind, oblivious to the action and entertainment that we've just seen at the top of Alto da Foya. We think that Magnus Cort has one ahead of Ilan van Wilder. Rui Costa with another podium. Valentin Madouas is fourth. Jay Hindley is fifth. Hedegaard sixth, because there's a gap of 2 seconds that's been called. Conchi, Pidcock, Vermark and Mollema. Cort is today's winner. We are in the court of King Magnus at the top of Alto da Foya, and he leads after stage 2 of the Volta Algarve. It's a 4-second lead over the brilliant Ilan van Wilder, who will feel hard done by there. But you've got to ride all the way to the line before you put your arms up. Rui Costa in third at 6 seconds. This race very much on with 3 days to go. He knows now, Matt.
He certainly does. Fantastic win, that really was. Completely unsighted, but even for us, it was just that very last moment, because we were focused on Van Wilder, also on Costa, came up on the inside, but also the amount of ground that he made up in that 50-metre stretch, that little right-hander, to bring himself back into contention, took a brief pause, then went on the power again. We had 2 sprints there. So much changed in the last 150 metres of that stage, and just indicates again how complex and how timing is so important in headwind sprints like that. But a magnificent, smart victory there for Magnus Cort Nielsen.
Sensational stuff as we left Sagadish this morning under sunny but windy skies. 6 riders got away in the breakaway. They were Matthew Gibson, Rafael Lorenzo, Thomas Conte, Gaspar Gonçalves, João Matias and the King of the Mountains, Antonio Ferreira. In the yellow jersey leading the race was Alexander Kristoff of Uno X. And his team took control of the race behind as the 6 riders in front went and did what they were doing, looking for King of the Mountains and sprint classification points. Leading that King of the Mountains fight was Antonio Ferreira, but he was being pushed all the way by Rafael Lorenzo. Just a single point separated them when the breakaway was caught. And the break would be caught just before we got to the final 2 climbs of the day. Before that, João Matias had taken 6 bonus seconds, but they were ready for action. They were caught on the unclassified climbs just before the final 2 final climbs of the day, the Picota and Alto de Foya. Christoph waved goodbye to the yellow jersey, but he knew that was about to happen anyway, didn't he? Before Kasper Asgreen tried to set up a very confident Ilan van Wilder, we'd soon find out why. Van Wilder was one of the riders to really launch things. Following the wheel of Oscar Onley, Van Wilder would come around him, hit the front and stay at the front for what seemed like an eternity into a headwind. Problem for him was a little too long, wasn't it? Because we're number 22 in the pink jersey, still around 6-7 wheels back and on the other side of the road here, Magnus Kort would put in one of the finales of his life. We know he's a superstar, winner of big races, stages at the Tour de France, remember, and the Vuelta a España for fun. But here he appeared out of picture, out of shot, and just as Van Wilder was celebrating what should have been a victory, he thought, not a chance.
It was the last throw, wasn't it?
We now live in the court of King Magnus. Wow. And he'll be wearing yellow tomorrow. After poor Ilan van Wilder thought he'd won. Was not to be the case. Settling for second.
Oof. Painful. You can feel his pain, can't you? You really can. But he rode. He opened it up. He had a lot of strength, Van Wilder, didn't he? He led for so long, considering it's a headwind. This extra shot we've got here from the left-hand side, you can see the pace at which Magnus Kort Nielsen is moving around that corner, and ultimately took the because it moves left ever so slightly, just took the shortest line as well. Van Wilder drifted out to the right-hand side, took a slightly longer line, but I think it was that final throw and that momentum that he had that took Magnus